My name is Maryam Zonouzi and I am the Chief Executive of Westminster Action Network on Disability and the Chair of the Choice and Control Board. As the Chief Executive of Westminster Action Network on Disability, I run what's known as the local user-led organisation. Every borough is mandated with having a ULO in each borough. So there's always been a mandate to represent the voice of users. But from the perspective of other care groups, for example, older people, what we did is we felt that it was absolutely pertinent that we brought a wider constituency of users together to represent a wider view around personalisation. And with the Chief Executive of Social Services, we established the Choice and Control Board. It's one of the drivers around achieving personalisation is making sure that when we provide individuals with a self-directed care budget, a personal budget or an individual budget, that they are in themselves empowered to go on and commission services in their own right. Moving forward, under a personalisation model, what we would seek to do is allow individuals in the first instance to assess their own needs. Obviously with support, that's not to say that suddenly your care manager or your social worker isn't going to have a role to play in your life. It just means that you determine how much of a role they have to play. So following on from the self-assessment, what would happen is instead of a preordained or predetermined commission, you might be entitled to a personal budget. And once you've received that personal budget, you then determine what services you buy. Now you might choose to buy the same services you've always had because you might be happy with those services. So again, it's not about taking services away, but it might be that for some people that they haven't typically been happy with the services that have been pre-commissioned, so they may go on and purchase different sorts of services that best suit their needs. So under the personalisation model, the end user is actually an active participant in commissioning and in their own lives rather than a passive one. The things that we've done obviously means that this is successful now is obviously we have a self-assessment questionnaire where people are able to identify their own needs as opposed to having their needs ascribed for them. We are in a position where we do have organisations that are looking at developing and delivering brokerage across the council so that disabled people and older people can, through peer support and other methods of support, can receive one-to-one support planning advice on how they might like to spend their resource allocation. In terms of then the procuring of services, we are developing a resource directory for both brokers who work within the council but also external brokers, so that users are able to sort of look and see what services are available out there in the community for them to purchase. And certainly with the work that we're doing in partnership with the PCT on the Common Assessment Framework demonstrator sites, what we're doing is we are trying to bring that communication under one roof so that both healthcare professionals and social care professionals have and are able to access the same information about me and about you and about other users, so that users don't feel like they consistently have to repeat themselves over and over again, but are also able to participate in a discussion about their own care and about their own health. One of the aspects of personalisation is that there is a move towards wanting to provide a universality of services, universal services. And what that basically means is that all of the good practice that we have within social care needs to now really be repeated across other departments, so that, if you like, the burden of us as service users wanting services doesn't just sit with social services. Social services often only represent a very tiny sliver of somebody's life, as it should, whereas transport, the built environment, housing, all of those aspects actually represent a much larger chunk of somebody's life and what somebody might describe as being important to them. What strategic commissioning has done in terms of enabling us to, if you like, move forward and push personalisation forward, is that it's enabled us to consult early, which is the key, identify the needs very, very early on, and actually look at our population, so that when we come to commissioning services that we do ultimately need to commission, even though we might want commissioning to happen on an individual basis, we also need commissioning on a global level to continue, that we understand our population, we understand the needs of our population, we have spoken to those people who are going to be most positively or negatively impacted by the things that we ultimately create, and to make sure that they are involved at every single level of that commissioning cycle. And to make sure that it is outcomes based, that ultimately it meets the expectations of those users, and that we continue to monitor, because the thing about user-led outcomes-based commissioning is that it's a cycle. It never really stops. When you think you're done, actually what you need to do is relook, change, learn from that change, adapt, etc. And the cycle continues. As long as we have user involvement and user engagement at every level of that cycle, then you can pretty much guarantee that what the outcomes are at the end of that is what the users have asked for, and hopefully they're happier, we have a better service that's cost effective for the end user and also makes sense for a service provider who's actually trying to provide the service.